Ghi âm bài. Đây là bài Recurrent Aviation in Destination Training for Cabin Crew. Thì đây là tài liệu về an ninh hàng không. Mỗi năm mình sẽ được recurrent một lần. Thì trước tiên là chúng ta sẽ tìm hiểu.
Via this course, the course participants will conduct a review of general knowledge on basic aviation subjects, so that they may have a more comprehensive understanding of aircraft operations. It allows cabin crew members to develop situation awareness, and improves inter-crew communication, thus enhancing overall safety, and improving the integration of cabin crew with the flight crew members, and other aviation personnel.
Ở cái khóa học này chúng ta sẽ tham gia để tiến hành sẽ ôn lại những kiến thức chung cơ bản về an ninh hàng không để chúng ta có thể có nhiều những cái kiến thức hiểu biết về khai thác trên tàu bay, về hoạt động khai thác của máy bay, và nó cho phép các tiếp viên chúng ta, mỗi thành viên tổ bay chúng ta sẽ nhận biết được những cái tình huống và nâng cao được cái kỹ năng giao tiếp, cũng như là nâng cao được cái về trình độ về cái an toàn và cải thiện những cái nâng cao được những cái phản ứng, có những cái phản ứng thực tế của tiếp viên với thành viên tổ bay và cá nhân, và trong cái việc là về an toàn an ninh hàng không nói chung. Đó. Thì đây là nội dung mà chúng ta sẽ học ngày hôm nay, đó là Vietnam Aviation Legislation này, Cabin Crew Responsibility này, và Physiology of Flight và Determination of Cabin Crew Number.
Vietnam Aviation Legislation. Vietnam Civil Aviation Law 2006. The Vietnam Civil Aviation Law was passed on June 29, 2006, by the 11th National Assembly, at its 9th session. The law comprises 10 chapters, and 202 articles. Article 1, Scope of Application. This law provides for the civil aviation activities, including provisions on aircraft, airports, aerodromes, aviation personnel, flight operations, air transport, aviation security, liabilities, general aviation, and other activities relating to civil aviation. 2014 Civil Aviation Law Amendment. The law amending, and supplementing, a number of articles of the Vietnam Civil Aviation Law, which was passed on November 21, 2014, by the 13th National Assembly of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, at its 8th session.
Về luật hàng không của chúng ta năm 2014, luật hàng không, thì chúng ta đã vượt qua được, trải qua những là không có năm 2014, được chưa? Đấy. Đấy. Và cái này là chúng ta sẽ chỉ xem qua đây, chúng ta sẽ tìm hiểu qua này.
Vietnam Aviation Regulations, VAR. Background. Vietnam is a signatory to the ICAO Convention, 1944, that provides the basis for international operations of aircraft. This convention provides for the issuance of desired aviation standards as annexes. These annexes prescribe the standards and recommended practices, SARPs, that should be adopted as regulatory requirements, to ensure the recognition and reciprocity between the ICAO contracting states. Each state is expected to include these SARPs in their aviation regulations and advisory documents. Vietnam has consolidated those SARPs, which apply to aviation organizations and operators and their personnel into the Vietnam Aviation Regulations. The Vietnam Aviation Regulations are 1. ICAO-based. 2. Edited to assign personal responsibility for compliance with applicable requirements. 3. Edited to avoid the excess repetition of the same requirement, found in multiple locations in the annexes. 4. Edited to include additional requirements that were determined to be relevant international requirements. 5. Developed as a consolidated body of regulations, applicable to flight safety standards. 6. Organized into books, to group the requirements pertinent to specific technical users.
Về luật an ninh hàng không Việt Nam thì chúng ta dựa vào các bối cảnh, 6 cái bối cảnh ở đây. Chúng ta sẽ tự tìm hiểu ạ.
Implementation to cabin crew member license. VAR 7.303, cabin crew member, eligibility requirements. To be eligible for a cabin crew member, a person shall 1. Be at least 18 years of age, 2. Hold a graduate certificate of training flight attendants in ATO, CAAV approved or recognized. 3. Hold a valid health certificate by a competent medical center. 4. Employed as airline flight attendant. 5. Meet the relevant requirements in this section. Appendix 1, to VAR 13.011, Cabin Crew Member Training. The cabin crew member training programs shall be adequate to ensure that each person is 1. Competent to execute those safety duties and functions which the cabin crew member is assigned to perform, in the event of an emergency, or in a situation requiring emergency evacuation. 2. Drilled and capable in the use of emergency and life-saving equipment, required to be carried, such as life jackets, life rafts, evacuation slides, emergency exits, portable fire extinguishers, oxygen equipment, first aid and universal precaution kits, and automated external defibrillators. 3. When serving on aeroplanes operated above 3,000 meter, 10,000 feet, knowledgeable as regards the effect of lack of oxygen and, in the case of pressurized aeroplanes, as regards physiological phenomena, accompanying a loss of pressurization. 4. Aware of other crew members' assignments and functions in the event of an emergency, so far as is necessary, for the fulfillment of the cabin crew member's own duties. 5. Aware of the types of dangerous goods which may, and may not, be carried in a passenger cabin, and 6. Knowledgeable about human performance, as related to passenger cabin safety duties, including flight crew, cabin crew coordination. VAR 14.085, Competence Checks Cabin Crew Member. A. No person may serve, nor may any person use a person, as a cabin crew member unless, since the beginning of the 12th calendar month before that service, that person has passed the competency check, prescribed by the CAAV, performing the emergency duties, appropriate to that person's assignment. B. The operator shall ensure that, this check is adequate, to determine that the cabin crew member is competent, to execute those safety duties and functions, which he or she is assigned, to perform in the event of an emergency, or in a situation requiring emergency evacuation. Appendix 1, to VAR 14.085, Contents of Cabin Crew Member Competency Check. A. The cabin crew member competency check shall include, for each cabin crew member, a live-timed one-on-one, demonstration of the performance of assigned duties, at a representative emergency exit, during an emergency evacuation. The standard of performance shall be that, from the cockpit evacuation signal, the crew member shall be able to perform all required tasks, including actuation of the evacuation slide, and all standardized passenger instructions, callouts, within 7.5 seconds. B. The cabin crew member shall be required to demonstrate, at least 2 other passenger emergency callouts and associated actions, selected by the person conducting the check. The standard of performance shall be that, the crew member be able to enunciate the callouts, using the correct phraseology, and perform the tasks associated with the particular callouts. C. The cabin crew member shall be required to participate as an assigned crew member, in an emergency ditching demonstration. All cabin crew members will be assigned specific positions in the aircraft, for the start of the demonstration. The standard of performance shall be then, from the cockpit signal, the crew members shall be able to perform all required tasks within 6 minutes. Then, from the instructor's signal that the aircraft is motionless in the water, the crew members shall be able to perform, or simulate the performance of, all tasks to deploy and board the rafts. Physiology of flight. Cabin altitude. The modern jet airliner cruises at, or above altitudes 10,000 meter, over 35,000 feet. The outside air temperature is around -35 degrees Celsius, to -55 degrees Celsius, and the air pressure too low to support life. This is why the jet aircraft has pressurization system, which provide the correct temperature and pressure, for the comfort of its occupants. The aircraft has also to be built strong enough, to withstand the pressure difference inside and outside the cabin. This interior pressure is maintained by the aircraft systems, even when the aircraft is cruising at its maximum altitude. Pressurization systems are designed to keep the interior cabin pressure between 12 psi and 11 psi at cruise altitude. On a typical flight, as the aircraft climbs to 43,000 feet, the interior of the plane climbs to between 5,000 feet and 8,000 feet. This is sometimes called the cabin altitude. Cabin pressurization is a process in which conditioned air is pumped into the cabin of an aircraft, in order to create a safe and comfortable environment for passengers and crew flying at high altitudes. For aircraft, this air is usually bled off from the gas turbine engines at the compressor stage. The air is cooled, humidified, and mixed with recirculated air if necessary, before it is distributed to the cabin by one or more environmental control systems. The cabin pressure is regulated by the outflow valve. Cabin pressurization becomes increasingly necessary at altitudes above 10,000 feet, 3,000 meter, above sea level, to protect crew and passengers from the risk of a number of physiological problems, caused by the low outside air pressure above that altitude. On commercial aircraft, the cabin altitude must be maintained at 8,000 feet, 2,400 meter, or less. Loss of pressurization of the aircraft cabin as a result of structural failure, or pressurization system malfunction, this is referred to as decompression. Loss of pressurization is a potentially serious emergency in an aircraft flying at the normal cruising altitude, for most jet passenger aircraft. Loss of cabin pressure, or depressurization, is normally classified as rapid or gradual, slow, based on the time interval over which cabin pressure is lost. The time of useful consciousness, TUC, or effective performance time, is the period of elapsed time, from the interruption of normal air supply, or exposure to an oxygen-poor environment, until the time when the ability to function usefully is likely to be lost, at which point an affected individual would no longer be capable of taking normal corrective, or protective action. Barotrauma: as the aircraft climbs or descends, passengers may experience discomfort, or acute pain, as gases trapped within their bodies expand or contract. The most common problems occur with air trapped in the middle ear, or paranasal sinuses, by a blocked eustachian tube or sinuses. Pain may also be experienced in the gastrointestinal tract, or even the teeth. Usually these are not severe enough to cause actual trauma, but can result in soreness in the ear, that persists after the flight, and can exacerbate or precipitate pre-existing medical conditions, such as pneumothorax. Decompression sickness is caused by inert gases, mainly nitrogen, coming out of the solution into the body's tissue due to exposure to reduced atmospheric pressure. When breathing air at sea level, nitrogen normally saturates the body. As the ambient pressure decreases due to increasing altitude, the body becomes supersaturated with nitrogen. Some of this nitrogen can come out of the solution as bubbles in joints, the skin, or the chest. Depending on the location and the extent of bubble formation, the symptoms can vary. Recognition: painful joints such as the knees or elbows. Itching in the skin possibly accompanied by rash. Pain in the chest with a dry hacking cough. Possible paralysis and a loss of vision. Loss of balance similar with the action of a drunk. Unconsciousness, possibly death. Hypoxia. Hypoxia occurs when the oxygen available in the body supply is insufficient to meet the needs of the body tissues. The greatest of hypoxia to a pilot is normally a result of the fall in pressure associated with a rise in altitude. Early signs of hypoxia relate to higher mental functions, and are similar to those of alcohol. The rate of onset depends on the altitude as follows. 15,000 feet, the signs and symptoms are relatively slow in onset, and difficult to detect. 40,000 feet, the signs and symptoms occur so quickly that an individual may not recognize what is happening. Hypoxia, recognition. Personality change. Impaired judgment. Muscular impairment. Memory impairment. Sensory loss. Cyanosis. Hyperventilation. Impairment of consciousness. Other sensations include tingling or warm sensation, sweating, headache, and nausea. Click the icon to watch the video.
Alright, I'll make it super fast. Hey, it's me, Destin. Welcome back to Smarter Every Day. When you're in a jet, if the cabin depressurizes, they drop this little mask out of the top. Well, what happens if you're in a depressurized cabin and you're up above 15,000 feet and you drop your mask? Something called hypoxia takes effect, and you got to do something about that. Let's get smarter every day.
You've heard the flight attendant say this before. Secure your own mask before helping others. But why? Why do they say that? Is the 30 seconds it takes to put on a kid's mask next to me really that important? 15 years ago, I learned the answer to this question when I was selected to participate in NASA's Reduced Gravity Student Flight Opportunities Program at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Before I got to ride in the Vomit Comet, I had to undergo physiological training in a hypobaric chamber at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. Fast forward to now. Today, astronaut Don Pettit is scheduled to renew his hypoxia training certification, and I asked him if it would be okay if I tagged along. He let me swim a few laps with him over the International Space Station mock-up in the Neutral Buoyancy Lab before we headed over next door for Don's training.
You look like something a dog dragged in.
I feel like it too.
The purpose of hypoxia training is to let astronauts and aviators know when their brain is about to stop working correctly, which is very, very important. If you're at a high altitude in an airplane, the air is thinner, but the cabin is pressurized so your body gets enough oxygen to operate. To simulate cabin depressurization, NASA puts its astronauts in a chamber at sea level and then pumps the air out to thin it out so that it simulates a higher altitude. Don's training starts with classwork, focused on understanding the specific signs and symptoms of hypoxia in his own body. The goal of this training is to understand your own physiological symptoms so that you can take action quickly. For example, Don said he experiences tunnel vision and air hunger, but I remember from my training 15 years ago that I get really happy and start to tingle all over.
I can't take you seriously because this is what you look like.
What do you mean? I'm perfectly normal.
This is the experiment we're going to do. Don and I are both going to enter the hyperbaric chamber at the same time and fly up to FL 250, at which point we're going to remove our masks and start to experience the effects of hypoxia. Don is the control. He's a trained astronaut who recognizes the symptoms for hypoxia and immediately corrects for them. I, on the other hand, am under the direct supervision of a NASA flight surgeon, and after I noticed the effects of hypoxia, I've asked if I could delay for about 1 minute so we can better understand the physiological effects of not immediately putting your mask on.
Okay, here we go. We're getting set up.
While Jerry gets me situated, I'm going to talk about the 2 types of decompression. Number 1, rapid decompression. This is like being inside of an explosion. You dump all your pressure instantly, all the moisture condenses out of the air, you're suddenly in a cloud. Very scary, very violent. Yeah, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is simulate a slow, steady leak. We're going to start at sea level and ascend at 5,000 feet per minute all the way up to 25,000 feet, or as aviators call it, flight level 250.
You can see the altimeter right here above Jerry. He's pointing it out to you. So we're just passing through 10,000 feet of altitude. I want to start talking a little bit about the gas expansion. You'll see the gloves here already are starting to show the effects of the reduced pressure. So Boyle's law obviously is telling us that any time we have in the body, as long as the temperature remains constant, we go to altitude, reduce the pressure, then the gases inside that is going to expand.
I'm experiencing Boyle's law in my gut right now. I am too. We're passing gas.
All right, gentlemen, we are coming into flight level 250. What Sharon is going to do is she's going to level off at that altitude. She's going to give us a little bit of a vent to get rid of some of that angle of bank that you guys were talking about. Now that we're at 250, what we're going to do is I need you to disconnect your mask from the right-hand side so that both of you get hypoxia at the same time, even with the mask disconnected. If you could do that for me. So if you'll drop your mask from the right-hand side, turn your regulator off. You can look at the surgeon's gloves. You can see that they're really experiencing gas expansion. How are you guys feeling inside the chamber as far as the gas goes? Yeah. And so we're going to start this hypoxia demonstration. Whoever has the toy, if you want to use that for me. So what I'd like for you to do is to pick up a piece, hold it up, show everybody, and tell me what shape it is. It's a triangle. All right, so you're going to put it inside the box. Good. Okay. Next piece. Another triangle. Circle. So now it's a cylinder. It's a cylinder. Across. Square. That's another cube. This is a cylinder. We also can see a little purple come around your nose and your lip area. This is a star. Now, before we do it again, let's put your pulse on your finger. We haven't done that yet. Let's try to check your O2 saturation and see what we're down to. You've been on oxygen now for 2 minutes, by the way. Roger that. Don, how you doing over there? I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm towards the black and white, and the Looney Tunes kind of thing. My vision is going into just a central spot. All right, so Don, you can go back on oxygen anytime you want to. You don't have to stay off. I'd like to know what the O2 saturation is on your pulse ox there. What does it read now? 67. 67. Okay, so that's a critical area here where you need to start thinking about getting back back on oxygen, because once you get below 60, death can occur just like that, right? So you got you don't want to die. Can we try the shape box one more time, just to compare the difference between when you were just starting your demonstration versus right now? We can tell you're really starting to feel the effects of hypoxia. Triangle? Yeah, what I'm interested in is to see what kind of coordination he has now. 17, right? Yeah, you've been on oxygen for about 3:45, 3 minutes 45 seconds. What is that? Square.
And what was that one? A square. Are you sure that's this one?
Oh, you're starting to have a little shake there, you know, that lack of oxygen. You need to start thinking about getting back on oxygen now, Dustin. What would you do? If you felt like you needed to get on oxygen, how would you correct for that? Can you correct for hypoxia for me? All right, so if you don't get on oxygen, you're going to die, right? You're not going to be able to survive this. Go to your regulator, get all 3 switches up. All right, go to your regulator, get all 3 switches on your regulator. All right, let's go ahead and put him on for him. Let's get him back on. All right, let's continue on with the shape box.
So you're going to square?
Yeah, all right, good deal, good deal.
Circle?
Look at that. See, that right there proves how much he's already gone from hypoxia back to feeling 100%.
But this is really important. So this is why on aircraft, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on before you help younger children.
That's exactly correct. Yes.
Because you want to be able to have the mental awareness to be able to save yourself and save others.
If you're waiting, what can happen is that while you're trying to reach over and put that oxygen mask on that child, you may end up passing out from the lack of oxygen.
That's super important. I'm probably going to pay attention to the man or woman that's giving me the proof out briefing again.
Okay, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. We performed this demonstration at 25,000 feet and had about 3 to 5 minutes of consciousness left. However, most airliners travel at 35,000 feet. Look at this chart. There is way less oxygen up there. At 35,000 feet, you literally have seconds of useful consciousness at that altitude. You can go from a normally rational person to someone so helpless you can't even save yourself if your life depends on it. I don't tell you this to scare you. I simply want you to understand the physiology behind that little pre-flight announcement. Put your mask on first before helping others.
I can tell you right now, had Susan not been with you and gotten your mask back on, we say it, you would have died. You really would have.
You saved my life, Susan. Oh, your hamburger. Copy.
Look, I don't want to get too deep or philosophical with this, but I think there's a neat metaphor here. Sometimes it's easy for me to see the problems in other people and focus on that, and I get so carried away with fixing other people that I forget that I have a problem too. And I think that's what's so cool about this demonstration. Sometimes you just gotta put your mask on first and get yourself sorted before you can help others.
So thanks again for saving my life, by the way.
You're welcome. It was an honor and a pleasure.
That was great.
All the time.
Thank you. There you go. Now we learned why you need to put your mask on first before you help other people. You don't want to get hypoxia. I'm Dustin. You're getting smarter every day. Have a good one.
If you feel like this video earned your subscription, feel free to click this box that I'm in right now, or you can click to support on Patreon and you'll be notified via email every time I...
Crew member responsibilities. Cabin crew are required to be present on public transport flights to perform duties in the interest of passenger safety and secondly to provide for passenger comfort. They must be well informed about safety and policy of the company. All cabin crew are under the authority of the commander. This authority is normally delegated to the purser. All cabin crew shall be familiar with the laws, regulations, and procedures as are pertinent to the performance of their respective duties. It is the duty and responsibilities of cabin crew to inform passengers on emergency and safety procedures, and to ensure the safety of passengers through all phases of flight, and to manage any emergency situation, in accordance with operations manuals and commander instructions. Responsibilities of purser. To have overall responsibility for all cabin crew members, under the operational command of the commander. To provide effective leadership to all operational cabin crew members on the particular flight. To apply all safety and security standards as required by Cabin Crew Operation Manual, CCOM, and other company documentation, and to ensure that other cabin crew members do likewise. Has the responsibility to organize the replacement of any cabin crew member that demonstrates inadequate knowledge of pre-flight safety briefing questions. To act as the liaison between the flight deck and cabin crew. To report to the commander on any incidents and safety concerns of any person on board the aircraft, and on any situation that might affect the safety of the operation, and to complete and sign the cabin defect log, as required, and to present to the commander prior to arrival. Sign catering delivery document and other document if required. Responsibilities of cabin crew members other than the purser. To apply all safety and security standards as required by Cabin Crew Operation Manual, CCOM, and other company documentation. To follow all directives from the purser under the operational command of the commander, and to report to the purser and the commander on any incidents and safety concerns of any person on board the aircraft, and on any situation that might affect the safety of the operation. Determination of cabin crew number. The minimum number of cabin crew members, minimum safety crew, is 1 for every 50 or fraction of 50 passenger seats, and not less than the number of cabin crew, who actually participated in the cabin evacuation demonstration, or analysis required during aircraft certification. The number of cabin crew members shall not be less than the number of life rafts required to be carried. When passengers are on board a parked aircraft, the minimum number of cabin crew members shall be 1/2 that required for the flight operation. Where 1/2 would result in a fractional number, it is permissible to round down to the next whole number. Those persons shall be spaced throughout the cabin to provide the most effective assistance for the evacuation in case of an emergency. 2. But never less than 1 cabin crew member, or another person qualified in the emergency evacuation procedures for the aircraft. This table shows the minimum cabin crew number on each type of aircraft in Vietnam Airlines fleets. Long-range over-water flights, operated by Airbus 321, are flights over Eastern Sea, which include but not limited to flights from Vietnam to destinations in Southeast Asia, example, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia. Flights from Vietnam to destinations in Northeast Asia, example, Taiwan, Korea, Japan. Flights from Da Nang, Saigon, Cameron, to destinations in China.